So at this point then, we're ready to start actually evaluating our code. Now, because we've got code that already exists in another project that we want to test, we actually have two options here. We could just copy and paste the code from our benchmarking project into this project, or we could create a jar file and integrate the jar file in. I think we'll do the jar file example actually in the next chapter when we do a bit more of a worked exercise. So for now, I'm going to do a copy and paste. So what I'm going to do is create a new class in the JMH benchmarking project, and we can put this anywhere in the project. I think what we should perhaps do is create a new package, and let's call this one com.virtualpairprogrammers.primes. I think that will do. And then within the primes package, we'll create our new class, and we'll call this one prime benchmarking. And click on finish. So the first thing then we'll do in this class is copy in the two variants of the methods that we want to test. So I'm going back to my old number checker, and I want to copy in the isPrime1 and isPrime2 methods. And let's place that in our new prime benchmarking class. And then we're going to write our benchmarking methods. So these are the methods that JMH is going to actually run. So let's see what they're going to look like. We'll call the first one, I think, just version1, and that's going to be a public void method. And then in here, what I want to do is call isPrime1 a number of times. Well, I think we'll do that with a loop. So let's check every number. We'll go from 1 to, I think, 50,000. And then in this loop, we just want to call isPrime1, passing in the value of I. So that's going to be a method that we want JMH to run. And the way we tell JMH to run that method is with an annotation, and the annotation is at benchmark. I'll just import the annotation, and as you can see, it comes from OpenJDK JMH annotations, and that's all we need to do to tell JMH that this is one of the methods we need to run. We can put a second one of these in, so let's do that, and we'll say version 2 is going to do the same number of iterations, but this time calling the second version of our isPrime method. So that is all we need to do to set up the project ready for JMH to run these two different versions and determine which is the most efficient for us. Actually, there is one thing we probably should do, and that is when you import this project, you actually get an example in this org sample folder called mybenchmark.java, which is an empty test method. And it's worth removing that because otherwise that's also going to run when we run the JMH process, and that will slow things down. So it's worth just removing that, and then we're ready to continue. So the project, if you like, is complete. We've done all the work. There's actually, however, two steps we need to do to run this project. The first step is we need to build a runnable jar file, and we'll do that from the command line. So I'm in the workspace folder here. I need to move into my project itself, which was called JMH benchmarking. And in here then, the command to actually build the runnable jar file, and you can check this if you want to from the JMH page. It does tell us it here. It's simply mvn clean install. So let's run that. And that might take a little while to run, so I'll pause the camera while that takes place. Okay, well, actually, that was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be, just 5 seconds on this machine, but that's great. Now, what that will have done is it will have created a folder for us called target. So let's go into the target folder and see what's in there. And what we've got in here then, amongst other things, is two jar files. Test-1.0.jar is a jar file containing the test that we've just written. Benchmarks.jar is a file containing all of the JMH benchmarking code. And actually, it's this benchmarks.jar that we need to run in order to run the benchmarking exercise. Now, this is going to take a long time to run, so I'll just start it off with java-jar benchmarks.jar. And this benchmarks.jar then is going to pick up our tests and do all of the running. I will warn you that this is going to take a long time to run, probably around about 25 minutes in this particular example. So don't be put off if it feels like it's taking a long time. That is completely normal. I guess it's one of the negatives of using JMH that it takes a long time, but it is giving us a robust framework, so it is probably worth doing. So I'm going to again pause the camera and I'll press resume when it's finished and we'll look at the results together. Okay, well that has finally finished, so let's look at what this output means. What this is saying is that version 2 ran an average of 268.9, I suppose 269 times per second. The error part here means actually it's this number plus or minus this number. So somewhere between about 265 and 273 times a second is how many times version 2 ran. Compare that with version 1, which ran roughly 1.4 times a second, and we can see that version 2 is over 200 times faster than version 1. So this certainly seems to indicate that version 2 is definitely more efficient than version 1.